5 birds that moved into human structures and refused to leave. There's a traffic light at a busy intersection in your city. Cars stop under it 50 times a day. Nobody looks up at the housing around the signal unit. At the small gap where the casing meets the pole, something's raising chicks in there right now. Welcome back to the Hidden Aviary. 5 more birds. 5 more places you've walked past without seeing what was inside. 1. The sparrow inside the traffic light. The house sparrow has been living alongside humans for roughly 10,000 years, since the first permanent grain stores, the first villages, the first walls with gaps in them. It followed the idea of settlement across the planet. Where humans built, sparrows arrived and stayed. They don't nest in trees if they can avoid it. They nest in cavities, holes in walls, gaps behind gutters, the space inside a broken drain pipe. And over the past few decades, as cities filled with hollow infrastructure, traffic light housings, illuminated shop signs, the plastic casings around security cameras, sparrows have moved into all of it. A sparrow nesting inside an active traffic light sits through the heat cycle of the bulb, the rattle of the mechanism, the vibration of trucks stopping 3 feet below. It doesn't seem to mind. The casing is warm, dry, and the opening faces away from wind. For a bird that evolved nesting in the walls of human buildings, a traffic light is just a very small wall with excellent weatherproofing. There are intersections in European cities where the same traffic light housing has had a sparrow nest in it for over 15 years. Maintenance workers know. They time the bulb replacements around the breeding season. The city and the bird worked out a schedule without ever discussing it. 2. The falcon that hunts the motorway. Most people know peregrine falcons are in cities now. We covered those in the first episode. But peregrines aren't the only falcon that figured out urban architecture. The common kestrel did it differently, and earlier, and with less drama. Kestrels are hover hunters. They hang almost motionless in the air, facing into the wind, watching the ground below for movement. In the wild, they do this over open grassland. But open grassland, from a kestrel's point of view, is any flat surface with short cover and plenty of small prey. Road verges, railway embankments, airport perimeters, the rough grass strips running alongside motorways. A kestrel perched on a high-rise window ledge on the edge of town isn't lost. It's positioned itself above the best hunting ground in the area. A motorway with grass verges running for miles in either direction. Uninterrupted. Full of voles and mice that have no idea a falcon is watching from a window on the 14th floor. The ledge works as a cliff. The motorway works as open step. The city gave it both at once. And the kestrel has been using that combination since before most of the buildings around it were finished. 3. The bird that follows destruction. Most birds avoid construction sites. The noise, the machinery, the constant disruption. Nothing about an active building site, says Habitat. The black redstart didn't get that memo. Black redstarts are small, dark, restless birds with a tail that shivers almost constantly, a quick orange rust flicker that's often the first thing you notice. In the wild, they nest in rocky mountain terrain, broken boulders, escarpment slopes, the gaps in cliff faces where the rock has fractured and fallen apart. Specifically, they need what ecologists call structured rubble, not solid rock, not open ground, but something in between. Ruin. Which is why, in Europe, black redstarts moved into bombed cities during and after World War II faster than almost any other species. London, Berlin, Rotterdam. The rubble left by bombing raids created thousands of acres of exactly the habitat they'd evolved for. Broken surfaces, irregular gaps, cleared ground, no trees, urban wastelands, construction sites, industrial brownfields, derelict factories. All of these lead to a black redstart the same way a collapsed cliff face does. not as damage, as home. There are cities where black red start populations track the progress of post-war reconstruction as bombs were cleared and built over. The birds shifted to wherever demolition was currently happening, staying just ahead of the rebuilding. They follow the edge of destruction, and in a city that's always building something and tearing something else down, that edge never fully disappears. 4. The bird filling the chimney from the inside. You already know about chimney swifts from episode 1. The birds that spiral into chimneys at dusk to roost. The jackdaw has a completely different relationship with chimneys, and in some ways a more complicated one. Jackdaws are corvids, the family that includes ravens, crows, and magpies. They're intelligent, curious, and deeply social. They nest in colonies, usually in cavities, hollow trees, cliff crevices, the gaps inside old stone towers. When they find a chimney pot, they don't spiral into it, they fill it. A jackdaw nesting in a chimney drops sticks in from the top, long sticks, one by one until they catch on something and form a base. Then more sticks on top of that. A single jackdaw nest in a chimney can involve hundreds of sticks and reach several feet deep. Chimneys that haven't been used for years sometimes have jackdaw nests packed so tightly that they're functionally blocked. The bird is doing exactly what it would do in a hollow tree, building a platform of debris at the right depth, below the entrance, with walls on all sides. The chimney is structurally perfect for this. The fact that there used to be fire at the bottom isn't something jackdaws seem to have stored in memory, because most of the chimneys they favor now haven't had a fire in decades, and because jackdaws nest colonially. If one pair finds a chimney stack with multiple pots, the colony sometimes claims all of them, a whole roof line full of individual apartments, each stuffed with sticks, each with a pair inside. The collective noise of the colony audible from the street below. To a jackdaw, a Victorian terrace with 6 chimney pots is a cliff face with 6 perfect cavities, almost indistinguishable. 5. The nest that's older than anything else on the wall. The last one is the quietest, and it's probably the one closest to where you're sitting right now, if you live anywhere in Europe. Look at the underside of your building's eaves, or the eaves of the building across the street. If you see a small, pale gray cup stuck to the surface just under the overhang, sealed, smooth, with a small round opening near the top, that's a house martin nest, and there's a reasonable chance it's been there for much longer than you've lived nearby. House martins are summer migrants that winter in sub-Saharan Africa and return to northern Europe every spring. When they return, they don't find a new nesting spot, they find the same spot they left. The same nest, under the same eave, on the same building. And if the original builder of that nest is dead, its offspring uses the nest instead. And then their offspring. The nest gets repaired, rebuilt, extended year by year. But the location doesn't change because house martins use geomagnetic memory and visual landmarks to return to within a few meters of exactly where they hatched. In the wild, they plaster these nests onto cliff faces. In cities, the underside of building eaves gives them the same overhead shelter, the same angle of exposure, the same protected approach. Some house martin nests on European buildings have documented occupancy going back 30, 40, even 50 years across multiple generations of birds, all returning to a specific square foot of wall that their great-grandparents chose because it looked, from the air, exactly like the right overhang on the right cliff. If there's a small gray cup under your eaves, it was probably there before your building was repainted. Maybe before you were born. The bird that built it flew here from Central Africa to do it, navigated back to this exact address without a map, and considers this wall your wall as much its territory as any cliff in the natural world ever was. It has the longer claim, by quite a lot. If something outside your window looks different tonight, subscribe.